Oh yeah, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is sublbc here, doing another video slash audio episode of what it takes to be a grower. And in this episode, guys, we're gonna kind of do, a little bit of a reflection and a little bit of a catching up, since it has been such a long time since we've done a an update to this series. And before I get into it, though, I did want to let everyone know that my Instagram account is back. I was temporarily suspended for defending one of my friends who was an avid Trump supporter, and she was just getting viciously attacked by a bunch of fucking animals, basically. And I jumped in there and said some things, and it got my account banned. But I did plead my case to Instagram, and they did restore my account as well as hers. And it was crazy that hers was taken down anyways, because she didn't even say bad things. But yeah, guys, we are back up and running, and that's a really good thing. Honestly, I thought I was going to lose it altogether, which, again, I'm not a huge fan of Instagram per se. I think it's a pretty useless application. At least that's my perception. But for whatever reason, a lot of people like it. A lot of you guys out there like it. I guess it's a quick way just to see what the fuck's going on, and I do update it, somewhat regularly. So be sure to check me out on Instagram, Growing for Freedom, and that's FOR or the number four. Or actually, I think on Instagram it's the number four, but you can actually just go directly to my Instagram from the web, growingforfreedom.com, and I got both domains. So yeah, there's that. Also, for all you guys that are wondering what the fuck is going on with the Growing for Freedom series, it is ongoing. I actually am going to be doing a final master edit of all the Growing for Freedom episodes with the proper dubbed audio and stuff like that, to really take you guys through the grow from start to finish. But for you guys that want to follow it as it's going on in its raw form, they're all Facebook exclusive videos here at this point. So if you are friends with me on Facebook, you can check out these videos already. Just check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/sublbc. Link will be in the description. And if you are not friends with me on Facebook, then get on Facebook, sign up for an account if you don't already have one, and friend me up. Although I will say, guys, that at this point I'm not really accepting friend requests from new accounts. So hopefully you already have an account. Because I do, some light vetting. I don't just like take anyone and everyone's friends requests at this point. You know what I'm saying? So I do want to keep the quality of my friends, relatively high. Because I think at some point there, guys, I was just like friending like way too many fucking people that I don't even know who the fuck. I end up with all these fucking glass blowers and shit on my friends list. I'm like, where the fuck do you guys all come from? But anyways, guys, the title of today's video is knowing your enemy. And I know that some people will like this, some people will hate this, but this is going to be a segue into a political discussion of sorts, as we examine what has happened and, trying to understand, who our enemy is, because I think that a lot of people out there really have no clue who their actual enemy is. And I did want to explain why. So, obviously America is a very different place now. We are on the cusp of witnessing one of the greatest presidencies in history, and I know that a lot of you guys will probably freak out and think that I've totally drunken the Kool-Aid by making such a crazy statement. But I did want to back it up with some evidence. So now, when I talk about greatness, what I really mean is action. When I look through the entire history of the presidencies, or of the presidency of the United States, I really have the most respect for those who just took action. Who took action? Well, these are guys like Teddy Roosevelt. This is a guy that took action. Abraham Lincoln is a man that right there towards the end definitely took action. The passing of the 13th Amendment was no small order. Especially given what the fuck was going on in the country at that time. These are all men of action, and we have not seen men of action in the presidency in a long time, certainly not within my lifetime. And when we talk about my lifetime, I'm talking about, from, let's see, was I even around for Ford? No, I don't think so. So it'd be like Carter, Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, gosh, fucking Bush Jr., and then Obama, and now we are in the era of Trump. And this is the first time in my life that I've ever seen a president run a campaign, make multitudes of campaign promises, and like within a week starts, positive action on every single one of his campaign promises. It is absolutely unbelievable. Even ones that I thought that he was, potentially going to back down on, and ones that I wouldn't have necessarily minded if he backed down on, such as the wall. Um, Not the hugest fan of the wall. I think it's interesting concept, but I don't think that it's been appropriately thought through. I mean, obviously, if it's built as excellent as Trump wants to make it, it should certainly stop any kind of illegal immigrants from traversing into our territory. But I think that there are a lot of unforeseen problems that a wall like this can bring, especially to environmental factors and wildlife factors and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Philosophically and practically, I don't have a problem with the wall. If this is what it takes to fucking keep, illegal immigrants out of the country, then so be it. I think that we pretty much have as many illegal immigrants in this country as we pretty much need right now. I don't think anyone can really reasonably debate that. But at this point, it almost seems like we have so many that, I mean, is the wall, I mean, it kind of like is coming up like maybe 20 or 30 years too late at this point. You know what I'm saying? And given the fact that it's got $12 billion, I mean, who knows? Maybe not the best way to spend the money. But again, it's a campaign promise. It's things that he said he wanted to do. People voted for him because he said he wanted to do it. So he's going to fucking do it. I mean, it's looking like Trump is almost in a way becoming a lightning rod for the people themselves. He says that he wants to go ahead and start repealing the Affordable Care Act. And that's literally the very first thing that he did, the first 24 hours in office. He says that he's going to pull out of the, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This was something that was supported also by leftists such as Bernie Sanders. And he did it immediately. The deal is now dead. And ironically enough, the left is now punishing him for it, saying that it is something that's going to cost America's jobs and, it's bad and all this. Even though populist leftists supported it and no one seemed to have a problem when that was, kind of the focus of the discussion. It's just absolutely pathetic, guys. But still, what we are seeing here is a man of action. And this is certainly what we wanted to see, at least what I wanted to see, when everyone voted for Obama and Obama won the presidency. I think that everyone wanted to see change, that this was what change would look like. But we didn't get that. Instead we got 8 years of fucking bullshit and certainly no help to the cannabis industry in any meaningful way. In fact, the only thing that I can remember is Obama sicking his, attack dog, Eric Holder, who, by the way, is a very ignorant and very stupid fucking man, by the way. I don't know. He's been on Bill Maher a few times. And let me tell you guys, I am not impressed at all whatsoever with this man's mode of thinking. He's a mentally enslaved moron, as Mark Dice would say. And I don't even like Mark Dice really that much, by the way, but I do find him entertaining. But anyways, this is what we got from Obama, this change. You go to town hall meetings, talking about his beliefs about cannabis and cannabis regulation, but not a single goddamn thing was done at the federal level to correct this glaring problem. And that glaring problem is preventing the states from making their own determination about whether or not they want cannabis legalized and how it should be legalized in their respective states. Not a single fucking thing done. Just absolutely atrocious. Considering this is coming from a so-called populist president, in which, if you look at the country's attitudes, this is something that should have been pressed forward on. I mean, look, if you're going to fucking pardon Bradley Manning or whatever the fuck, Chelsea Manning or whatever, then, you couldn't do a goddamn thing to help all the others that are in jail for smoking weed. It really just boggles the mind. And, given how pathetic the Obama presidency was and how demoralizing it was to watch this so-called, people's president get bought and paid for like a slave, and basically carry out the orders of his masters by carrying on the status quo and not really doing any truly effective legislation on anything. We got this? Really? We voted for this? I mean, it's just sad, guys. I mean, I'm sure that it really, really hurt a lot of people. And it definitely changed the whole way that I looked at politics. And to see someone like Trump come in, it is just a breath of fresh air. To see someone for the first time in my entire life actually do what he says he's going to do, whether you agree with it or not. And let me make it very clear that if Obama, had run, or Bernie Sanders or whoever, let's say Obama, because I think that's more relevant in this case, had run his campaign on all these populist things such as single payer healthcare and, minimum wage, whatever. And then he just went into office and started carrying out executive orders and all that. Even though I don't agree with it, I would have supported it, because this is what change is. That's his campaign. These are things that he's going to do. We voted for him and he does it. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily agree with all these policies, but as looking at the other side with, John McCain and his fucking senseless appointing of Sarah Palin as vice president, it's almost like, yeah, no problem. We'll get behind it. Don't agree with it. We'll get behind it. You look at Trump, no one wants to get behind him from the left. It's just like they will not stand for this shit. And the media lies. People believe it. And it is so fucking frustrating for, the enlightened, those who can kind of read between the lines, get a true feel of what the fuck is actually going on and see the real story behind the fake news and crap that I would say, like, at this point, almost 90% of all people take as gospel. People need to wake up. What we're seeing here, with this Trump presidency is going to do a lot of things, good and bad. But I will make this bold prediction. That is that we will see the federal government step aside under a Trump presidency as it concerns cannabis. He will step aside. He's going to pull it off the ban list, and the states will be able to make their own determination about how they want to regulate cannabis in their own state. That will happen. And I'll make another prediction. When it does happen, the fucking foaming at the mouth, rabid left is going to crucify him and accuse him of, big business interests, basically, cohorting with Trump to basically, make deals that will allow big corporate takeover of cannabis. You're going to see these stories run rampant, from the exact same individuals who have probably spent a better part of their lives, talking about how immoral it is to have cannabis as a Schedule 1A, right? As a dangerous narcotic. It's going to be fucking so funny to see the hypocrisy play out. And just mark this date down your calendars, guys. February 1st, 2017. SublBC says that Trump will end federally illegal cannabis, and the left will absolutely cut him down for it. It's just going to be so fucking hilarious, And if it would have been a black man named Obama, they would absolutely cheer and love him for it. You know what I'm saying? It is just absolutely so fucked up how horrible the political discourse has become. And I'm going to tell you guys, it all comes from the left. It's not fair or even close to being accurate to saying that this is just a complicated issue that, it's atrocities done on both sides. No. This is clearly a violent reaction. I mean, we've seen all the violence coming from leftist movements. Black Lives Matter, just a bunch of terrorists, essentially, inspiring the death and murder of cops, which I have my own feelings about, by the way. Honestly, I kind of almost give them even ground. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's basically a Nazi killing a communist. You know what I'm saying? I don't really give a shit. Let the two authoritarian fucking freak shows fight it out. But at the end of the day, they're still just thugs. You know what I'm saying? Just because, a Crip is a Crip is still killing a Blood, which is also a thug. It's just two thugs fighting it out in the streets is the way I look at it. But that is what they are. These so-called women's marches are not women's marches at all. These are leftist marches. They have no interest in women in general, unless they subscribe to a very, very specific, ideological format. There are a certain set of beliefs that you must have. If not, you will be rejected, even though these so-called movements, carry the banner for everyone. It is really quite ridiculous. And obviously, it doesn't take any amount of brain power to see where all the violence is coming from. It's obviously coming from the left. And remember, guys, there were a lot of really pissed off people when Obama was voted in. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of racists in this country. Make no mistake, the fucking racism everywhere. There's racism all over the fucking world. It's actually kind of pathetic that, America gets kind of like singled out, because we were the country that had, slavery in the most recent in history, even though we were the ones to pretty much end it for good. But anyways, because of this racism, people really hated Obama. Yet when he was voted in, we didn't see groups of white protesters taken to the streets and fucking blocking roads and just being hooligans and thugs and destroying property and shit like that. We didn't see any of that crap. What we did see, however, was a very foaming at the mouth ravenous political movement in the form of the Tea Party. And look, I don't like the fucking Tea Party either. These are fucking savages in their own right. But it does at least give you some insight as to the fundamental behaviors between leftist and right-wing politics, right? Left will always escalate violence. Always, okay? Violence is the fundamental tool by which they execute policy, whether it be direct engagement violence, like we see in the streets, like we see with, leftist revolutions, or whether it be using the state as a tool to use violence against others, right? This is the fundamental core of leftist ideology. Versus when you look at right wing, it's mostly about using the framework of democracy to invoke change. Now, this obviously only really applies to internal politics. As far as external politics, they're both pretty much the same. War hawks, defending American interests, capitalism, blah, 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 blah. You can all draw your own conclusions about that. But there are obviously clear differences about how, these groups approach politics internally, right? And it is very, very clear that people understand this, because you cannot understand your enemy until you know who the enemy is and why. It's also incredibly important that you self-reflect, and understand what you believe and why you believe it, because you may not know it, guys. You could end up being your own worst enemy. And I think that is another problem that is going on in the left with the whole social justice warrior movement. But yeah, guys, Trump is going to free cannabis. The left is going to crucify him for it. But again, this is what we've asked for, and we're going to get it. He says he's going to make a wall. We vote for him. We want the wall, even though it may not be a great idea. As far as banning Muslims from this country, well, I don't really see much of a Muslim ban, considering that we still allow Muslims from almost 50 other countries, just not the top 7 that Obama himself, kind of selected as being harbors for Islamic terrorism, but the left will not really paint that picture. They want to paint the picture of, poor Muslims being, basically persecuted. These are the people that we need to defend, and now you have basically, feminists at women's marches putting on burqas. It is absolutely disgusting. I mean, basically if Muslims were white men, the feminists would just absolutely hate them. I mean, we're talking about a hardcore patriarchal society that hates Jews. Basically if Muslims were mostly, were white men and white people, the social justice warriors would call them Nazis. They have all the same beliefs for the most part. They believe in the same God, both want genocide for the Jews. I mean, they were allies during World War II. So, it's just crazy times that we live in, guys. No one seems to be able to get a solid grasp on society. And I think that's, really dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't know who your enemies are, how the fuck are you going to navigate this shit? So that really takes us to the next point. It's like, what are we going to do with legal cannabis? Well, even though the liberals are going to crucify Trump for legalizing cannabis, their argument for allowing big corporate to come in and take over is not entirely wrong, but it's the price that we're going to have to pay. Obama missed his opportunity to be the greatest president in history by not retroactively pardoning, 200,000 people for nonviolent drug offenses. God, guys, if he just done that one thing, it would have made him the best president ever in a long time. But, Chelsea Manning, right? I mean, that's obviously priority. But in any case, under a non, without federal barriers, there is going to be big corporates coming in. And look, guys, we've had since 1996, at least in California, and with all the knowledge that was started there and the movement that has grown from the West Coast and brought its way all the way out east. I think it's pretty fair to say that we've had our time, to put together these operations. We know how they're built. We know how it's done. We know that there's not going to be any government subsidy given to big corporations. Okay. And yes, they're going to be able to throw a lot of money to build these huge gardens in an attempt to grow cannabis at a large scale level. But let me tell you guys, I mean, I live in the land of warehouses. I mean, dude, this is some of the most ridiculous agricultural land I've seen. Just acres upon acres upon acres, and pole barns and several $100,000 type facilities, potentially multi-million-dollar facilities, if one wanted to do so. And I've seen them blow up their fucking gardens and fail miserably. You know what I'm saying? If there's one thing that I've learned about this industry, and I think that just about anyone who knows anything about this industry will agree, is that it's not about the money, man. It isn't about how much money you can spend on a ridiculous facility. It's about the people that you bring in to run it and the leadership behind it. And without any government subsidy, I don't care how much money is put into it. If Philip Morris wants to buy 100,000 acres and grow outdoor cannabis and thinking they can flood the market with it, let them try. I'm going to put my faith in the consumers on this one. I know what they want because I know what I want. I want high grade, as chemical free as possible, pesticide free, fungicide free, the best smoking, best tasting, heavy hitting, fucking beautiful looking herb, competition quality. That's what I want. And just because some big ass multi-billion-dollar conglomerate is going to flood the market full of cheap shit herb, you think that's going to waiver my demands to get the good shit? I mean, last time I checked, guys, every dispensary that's out there selling weed has plenty of shit weed to sell. Fuckloads of it, man. They get this shit cheap as fuck. And I just don't see how a corporation is going to be able to sell, trying to corner a cannabis market when they probably really don't even really know that much about the cannabis market. You know what I'm saying? I mean, big companies have tried to come in and make moves in places they didn't quite understand before, and they failed miserably. You don't have to look too far. Look at Target. Target, multi-billion-dollar company, right? Just, hey, we're going to open up a whole bunch of stores in Canada and break into a market that we just think we can. And it didn't work too well for Target. They end up closing all their doors. Big companies, no matter how many billions of dollars they have, lose their asses all the time. I mean, look at Apple and their computer division, right? This is one of the biggest companies in the world, and they're basically just allowing themselves to get completely overtaken, in what used to be the most powerful sector of their business, because they're just not paying attention. It's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And, ever since Steve Jobs died, I don't even know what the right hand's doing. But that perfectly illustrates what the true problems are going to be for these companies. It's not the money, it's the people who are going to lead these fucking things, who actually has enough working knowledge, that perfect mix of high level thinking, big picture thinking, but yet not necessarily disconnected with the ground. You know what I mean? Knowing what the people are doing at the ground level, and especially, and most importantly, knowing your fucking consumers, knowing what they want, right? And I honestly don't think that these big companies are going to be able to just walk right in and fucking do it. I really don't believe it. Now, if the government is attempted to be used as a tool to keep little guys out, and there's some kind of a ridiculous exclusivity for big companies, to basically corner the market on cannabis and all others be illegal, then obviously I'm going to have huge problems with that. But I also do think that the people are smart enough to know to avoid these, types of legislative actions, which again are going to have to be taken on at the state level. These are not things that can just be executive ordered away, at the federal level, like Trump is doing now. There are going to be real discussions about the future of cannabis, and it is going to be done in a way that hopefully is sensible. So I guess at the end of the day, guys, for all of you people that just absolutely hate Trump because he's just a mean guy and, he said racist things and, doesn't like women or said bad things, you guys are fucking morons because you're really failing to see the big picture. I don't give a fuck about what Trump has done or said. The only thing that I care about are his actions in the office and how these can possibly benefit cannabis. And for the first time, since I've been in this industry, I actually really do have hope, because I did have that hope when Obama came in, but it didn't take long for me to realize that this guy is not our friend. He's our fucking enemy. He has absolutely no desire to help us in any way, not even to engage in discussion or debate on how it should be dealt with. No, it's just passed off to somebody else who basically has no interest in helping us. It has more of an interest on just packing the fucking jail system, the whole, criminal justice system full of people that are just wanting to smoke weed and don't necessarily want to get a fucking license for it. These are the real issues. And it's going to happen, guys, under a Trump presidency. And don't forget, I've made bold predictions before in the past. I've said that, the highest grade pounds of herb are going to drop down to 2,000, possibly less, in areas such as Colorado and California. And these things did happen, Again, if you've got the facts on the ground, you understand the relationship between, grower and consumer, supply and demand. Just do the math, guys. When there's no government subsidy and there's no one in there fucking with the numbers, capitalism has a funny way of really demonstrating the reality of the situation. And I think that as long as we continue on that path, we get people out of fucking jail, let them be productive members of society, help not destroy people. And this is the other thing too that just blows me away about the lunatic left. One of Trump's campaign promises was to get much, much tougher on immigration. There are as many as 20 million illegal immigrants living in this country, probably more. And that's a lot. We're approaching 10% of our total population. And, look, if you're going to throw people in jail because you're following the letter of the law, then why aren't we going after illegal immigrants? I mean, this is the letter of the law. And you know what the reply is? The reply is, well, we don't want to destroy the families. It's immoral, for us to, as police officers, to go in there and find these people and break up their families. And it's, not even our jobs. Wow, really? So I guess when you're breaking into a fucking, a weed smoker's house, shooting his fucking dog and dragging their the dad or whatever into jail and destroying that family, that's okay. But when it comes to a bunch of illegal immigrants living in sanctuary cities, now all of a sudden there's a moral dilemma. Guys, this should really help paint the picture of who your fucking enemies are, right? And obviously, the cops are the fucking enemies. And you don't have to, I've talked about that before in the past, the thugs, that is the police force. But, you might want to really look into it and understand why it is that way. Why are our cops so pitted against us, the people? Like, what is it about these immigrants that they have a problem with morally, but with us, all of a sudden, it's, they have no problems. And I'll tell you, it comes down to what I believe is this one key issue, is that if they go after illegal immigrants, well, what happens to illegal immigrants? They're rounded up and then they're fucking deported. And when they're deported, they're no longer helping to fuel this criminal justice system. This big ton of cash that has to keep flowing into this fucking scam to make sure that all these pigs and these thugs that work for the pigs and the sheriffs and their fucking thugs, that all these guys get their paychecks and their overtime, right? Illegal immigrants don't help with that. It's just dirty work. You got to go bust up a fucking guy. He's not even going to see a judge. They're going to know he's an illegal immigrant right away. He's going to be passed off to some federal department that doesn't directly benefit them. And under a Trump presidency, he's going back home where he belongs, right? And no longer going to be contributing to their system of oppression. That's the difference, guys. Okay? Now, when they go after a pot smoker, it's a different thing. Now, they're going to get you. They're going to get you thrown in jail. They know you got family on the outside that's got money that's going to take care of you. They're going to want to collect that money, with phone calls, prepaid collect, care packs, and whatever the fuck they can possibly nail you with. Then the judge is going to have to see you. You have to have a bullshit, public defender, asshole prosecutor on the other side. All of these guys have got their hands in the pockets. This is the game. This is what it's all about. That's why they go after people for smoking weed and why they're going to defend, illegal immigrants that are breaking the law. It has nothing to do with morals. Don't think it does for a second. These people are institutionalized thugs, the police, right? They don't know how to think on another level. They don't want to think on another level because it goes against their best interests. Seriously, guys, if Obama would have retroactively signed away, pardon all these people, how many people would lose their jobs? They got to keep those prisons filled, and I think that this is probably going to be one of the greatest challenges to a Trump presidency is, breaking with common, GOP ideology in its approach to the war on drugs. And, we're just going to have to hope that we're going to have to put our faith, really, guys, in Trump's popularism, hope that he has as much wisdom as he did listening to the people, the wisdom that won him this election, that he can have some wisdom to do all the things that Obama either didn't have the intelligence, but probably more than likely didn't have the balls to do because he was on the payroll of corporate goon squads. Big banks, Wall Street, they got his hooks into him very, very early on. But Trump, no. This is a guy who is naturally defiant. He hates these fucking people and they hate him. So I think it is really important, especially for you fucking leftist morons, to really open your eyes, try to see the bigger picture and understand why people like us are just so mesmerized by this presidency, and to really see how great it has been to see a man of action actually take action like a man. So anyways, guys, we are way past the 30-minute mark, talking about knowing our enemies and potentially knowing our friends. Next video update, I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be. To be honest, guys, I'm a little bit light on topics as it concerns what it takes to be a grower. And there are some things that I want to expand upon in regards to VPD and environmental stuff. I did actually probably want to do a Q&A video. So if you guys do have questions, put them in the comments. Although it is much better if you do email those directly to me at sublbcqanda@gmail.com. And that's Q&A, I believe. I hope. I think it is. Yeah, sublbcqanda at gmail.com. And we'll talk about some things. But again, in that next video, I did want to talk a little bit more about vapor, VPD, just for short. And it is some stuff that it is not really controversial, but did want to talk about some ideas about it. And also wanted to address some statements in regards to those who are still very, loyal to their natural gas or propane-based CO2 burners. Some interesting things to talk about with that. So as always, guys, thanks a lot for watching or listening, and I'll see you all next time.